So what have we learned from Canada these last couple of days? What did we learn from Toronto and the standoff that happened that ultimately ended up in the arrest of the man who mowed down people with his van, with his rental van? What did we learn? Because I'll tell you what I learned. I learned that Canada's magic. I learned that for whatever reason, a man can point a gun at a cop and not get gunned down. I've never seen that before. Have you? Have you ever seen a man point a gun at a cop and not end up with 17 bullets? Because that's what happened in Canada, and it's magical. It's like they're unicorn land up there. I mean, I've known for a while that Canada was pretty magical and pretty awesome. I mean, as soon as Trump was elected, I know many of us tried to fill out immigration papers to get ourselves up to Canada to try to escape the nightmare that was happening down here. But I didn't realize, I knew they had great healthcare, educations, and very liberal and accepting of all people. But I didn't realize that the cops actually also don't gun people down, even when they're armed. Even when they're armed. So did you happen to catch the footage? Now, pay attention to this. Look at this. So you can see the man down there. Now, he's holding something. He's pointing something at this officer, right? The officer is approaching. The officer is also pointing a gun at him. Look, the guy drops a weapon, and he's arrested, taken into custody, not gunned down. Now they can actually ask him questions. They can find out what the hell was going on. Why did he mow all these people down? Is he affiliated with a terrorism group? Is he mentally ill? Was he angry at something that had happened in his life? What happened? And now they can actually ask those questions. We have now just learned, we've been basically handed a giant lesson from Canada that even when a man is pointing a gun. Now, it's one thing, cops just gunning down unarmed people happens all the time here in this country, no matter the color. It really is a problem. And I've been saying this for a while, and I'm going to continue to say it. I don't think, now it is partially racial for sure. I do think that there is, cops feel a greater threat with people of color than they do people who are not of color. But I grew up in a state, Idaho, where there's like no people of color. I was like one of the only ones, and I'm half white. So but even then, cops had a big habit when I was a kid growing up. When I got my driver's license, they actually taught us that we had to keep both hands on the wheel, that we had to be very specific with the officer where we were reaching to get our registration, where we were reaching to get our driver's license, because they were gunning down people, unarmed citizens who they were pulling over. It was a real big problem in like 1997, 1998. And this is a white area, so they were gunning down white people, really, because there were no other people. But the big problem in the United States, to me, is more of the fact that the cops are just so trigger happy. They just think that there's a threat around every corner, and that because of it, they can just whip out their weapons and gun you down, like that Australian blonde woman who was gunned down. Or, I mean, the numerous black men that we've seen gunned down who are just telling the officers, listen, I'm armed. I mean, that's the worst. I'm armed. I'm telling you I'm armed. I'm letting you know, please don't shoot me. I mean, there's just so many instances of this, and yet the police are still pulling the trigger. And yet here we are in Toronto, and a guy is actually pointing a gun, a guy who just mowed down people. They were searching for this guy. He mowed down people. They saw him commit mass murder, and now he's pointing a gun at the cops, knowing that this guy is a psycho killer. He has no qualms killing people. This is what they know. And yet what do? They still are able to somehow wrangle this guy into custody without shooting him, without riddling him with 17 bullets. That is magical. How did they do it? We got to find out. I guess they're like unicorns up there, and there's just no way we're ever going to find out. This is unbelievable, and it's a lesson that we need to learn in this country. We need to send our officers to training in Canada to find out exactly how they're trained. How are they taught to handle these types of circumstances? And I get it. Look, it's a tough job. It really is. Cops are also gunned down all the time. And we can't forget that. We really can't. I know this debate that we have about guns and cops and unarmed people. And we also have to remember that cops are also shot. It's not a them or us mentality. It's got to be something that we work out and negotiate together. And one of those is, How do the Canadians do it? Because they're clearly doing it correctly. Canadian cops are also being gunned down by people. Canadian cops are also dealing with the same crimes, and they've got inner cities too. They've got bad areas. They've got good areas. They've got all the same things we do here in the United States. How are they doing things differently to the point where a mass murderer can point a gun at a cop and not get gunned down? That's what I want to know.